Hello, everybody. Welcome to the show. I'm John Thomas Hill. I'm doing this podcast in reaction to the other day when Demi Lovato came out as non-binary. And look, here's the thing. I'm a very socially liberal person who grew up in the Deep South, in the Bible Belt and all this, and I'm struggling with this. I'm struggling with understanding and wrapping my brain around transgenderism, non-binary, gender fluidity, pansexualism, and all this other stuff. I am. And if someone like myself, a pretty intelligent, pretty socially liberal-minded person, open-minded, is struggling with this, what about a traditional American society that still, in many ways, is socially conservative, even amongst people who consider themselves liberal? I mean, I turned 50 a couple of weeks ago. And I remember when the idea of gay marriage being legal was like sending people to Mars. It seemed like a fantasy, It seemed like it never happened, If you told me when I was in high school that gay marriage would be legal in the state of North Carolina in my lifetime, I'd have thought you were insane. And there were gay people who probably would have told you the same thing. And I'm glad it's there because I'm all for equal rights for everybody, being treated equal under the law. But now we're dealing with pronouns. And now we're dealing with your preferred pronouns and all this. And I'm like, okay, it's been a struggle. I mean, it's like, you're asking people who are across this nation who were born up, quote unquote, traditionally, male and female, all this in a very religious, and religion's very heavily influenced. Even people who don't go to church are influenced by this, by quote unquote traditional values, unquote. And I'm really struggling with this. I really am. And it's like, I'm all for, because I don't think this is really harming anybody at all. I don't think gay people molest kids any more than, I think it's obvious that most molestations happen, sexual perversions and all that happens with straight people far more than gay, lesbian, or anybody else in the LGBT community. It's just, the traditional, we don't like what they're doing, so we're going to scapegoat them and be bigoted toward them. But understand this, folks, those of you who are listening to this, who are transgender, who are non-binary, who are, what I would say, for lack of a better term, alternate sexual identities. And we're struggling with this. Those of us who are socially liberal, are struggling with understanding this. And to me, it doesn't matter if it's biological or not. It's it's not causing anybody harm, not really. I'm all for it. If you want, I'm not gay myself. I'm straight, but I'm all for gay people getting married, adopting kids, and being treated just like straight people. Same with lesbians. Same with anybody. I mean, just because I don't understand something doesn't mean I don't respect it. Now, I'm totally against adults having sex with kids. Trust me about it. Little kids, trust me about that. And that, as studies have shown, that's more often to be happening with people very close to the kids anyway, and usually that's amongst straight people, And of course, let's not talk about the Catholic Church and their little issues, because we all know about that. I'm just doing this podcast to put out there that there are those of us who were excited to see gay marriage pass in this country, to become legal. And for people who we've known to be oppressed for a long time, finally achieve their rights. But once that happened, it seemed like all of a sudden, all this other stuff that had been kind of, for lack of a better term, lurking in the shadows. That can be considered as a negative term. I'm just saying that lurking in the shadows because it wasn't really on my personal radar and a lot of people's radar. Now all of a sudden, we're hearing about non-binary, we're hearing about gender fluidity and all this, androgyny and all that. It's always been out there, androgyny. I mean, one of my favorite bands, Garbage, did a great song called Androgyny. And I knew it was out there to a degree, but all of a sudden now it's like it's become this thing where one day somebody who you've known in the public as a woman all of a sudden decides they're a man or neither one, and it's like, what? It just catches you off guard. It's like it's like totally understanding that for growing up and Pluto's the 9th planet, all of a sudden one day the folks who run the thing, I can't remember the exact international organization that deals with astronomy, decides that Pluto is no longer a planet because it's too small to be classified as a planet and all of this. And you're like, you go from 9 planets to 8 planets. It's not a very accurate comparison, but it's like you're trying to wrap your brain around it, going, all my life I've known Pluto to be the 9th planet. Now all of a sudden you're saying it's not the 9th planet? It's one of those things that for someone like myself who is older and has been used to a certain thing being a certain way for a very long time, and all of a sudden sexual identity, sexual gender, and all this is completely changed within a very relatively short period of time, and it's struggling to understand the whys, the hows, and all of this. And now, and the biggest problem is if you don't identify somebody accurately right off the bat, because let's face it, most of us still think of Demi Lovato as being a woman, and now she identifies herself, or they identify. You see the struggles I'm having? I respect the fact she consider themselves non-binary, but I'm used to her being her, not they, and I'm fine with her being that way. It's just, I'm like, it's like you turned on a dime. And it's like, Ellen Page now is, I can't remember what their name is now. She's non-binary, I believe, or, it's like, allow us to catch up with this, people. Please. We're not bigoted. We don't hate you. We're not going to grab you all up and put you at the stake and burn you at the stake for heresy or blasphemy or whatever. There's some who probably will, but those are bigots anyway. They hate everybody that ain't them. It's just those of us who are trying to understand this, or trying to do the right thing, or trying to not offend you, but are trying to grasp this. Are struggling with this. Okay? The change has been so rapid, it's almost too rapid. In this era of instant gratification, things have got to happen right then, right now. This insane 24/7 news cycle and instant communication and all this. Big things like this, big social issues like this, changing almost overnight relatively, the whole of society isn't going to just jump like that and change like that. We're still struggling with things we've been dealing with for thousands of years. You know, and change doesn't come quickly. You're going to have that minority that goes, I'm never going to change. I'm always going to consider black people inferior. There are people like that. There are people like that who, no matter how much evidence you show, black people are just as good as white people, they're going to say black people are inferior. They're going to say white women are inferior. They're going to say Hispanics are inferior. If you're gay, you're going against the word of God, blah, 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 blah. It's like, look, here's how I am. Here's how I am. Everybody on this planet should be treated equally. Respectfully, they have the rights to be a person on this planet. They have inalienable rights to believe what they want to believe within reason. You know, as long as it doesn't hurt anybody else. That's why I think you can believe you can believe whatever you want, but don't try and impose that belief on me. Okay? I think there are certain things, certain moral and ethical standards that go across all demographic lines. Like it's never good to kill people, never good to steal, never good to abuse people, assault people, and all that. But this whole idea that we have to impose gender roles is insane, you know. And yeah, the vast majority of people are born male or female, right off the bat. There is that group that has both sexual organs, and that I can understand that because I remember there was that Trapper John episode many years ago that dealt with it. That there was some baby born. I'm struggling to remember the whole details of it. But they had both, and the parents had to choose which one. And that kind of made me go, well, what happens if I encounter somebody like that? How did it... And I thought my chances of encountering somebody like that was remote back at the time. Because I was a little kid when that was coming on. Well, here we are, probably around 40 years later, and I'm having to understand this. And it's like, I'm trying to wrap my brain around it because, you know, I want to be that person that treats everybody equally, that respects everybody equally. Hey, you want to be transgender? You feel in your depths of your soul and in your DNA and all this that even though you were born with male genitalia, that you, in your heart and your soul, you were born female. That's fine. Change your gender. That's fine. As long as you're open and honest about it, and you're not trying to hide the fact from somebody, Same with the other way. If you're born with female parts and you feel like you're meant to be born male, that's fine, as long as you're open and honest about it, There are going to be people who vehemently disagree with me about that. But to me, it's just the fact that this has happened so fast. And that throws a lot of things out. Who you're attracted to. If you're straight male and you see a female that you're attracted to, and all of a sudden you find out that that female you're attracted to was born male. And you're kind of going, okay, what do I do now? Obviously there are people who will go nuts and, react harshly and violently and all this. We've all heard about that. With me, it'd be like, okay, how do I deal with this? Do I want to pursue this? And my Pollyannish belief is that most people would be like myself, would be questioning, do I want to do this because I don't understand it, So my message to people out there who are struggling with this is understand that there are those of us who support you, who understand the difficulties you're going through, but understand that we're going through difficulties too, and understanding all of this. This is happening at a very rapid pace, in a time where there's so much information thrown at us, where we don't know what to believe anymore. There's massive social upheaval going on in the world right now. Everything's being questioned. And some things that we thought would never be challenged are being challenged right now. The role of the church, the role of religion, everything. And now it's taking folks like myself a lot of time to wrap our heads around it, folks. Please give us time to understand this. Please bear with us. Please understand that, we don't mean you any harm. We want you to be loved. We want you to be supported. We want you to be respected. We want you to have the rights as those of us who are straight and all this. But give us time to understand all of this, what's going on, to adapt to it, to accept it in our heart and soul and all this, to be able, and forgive us when we make stupid mistakes like calling Demi Lovato a she now instead of a they or them. I mean, we're going to struggle with this, folks. We are going to struggle with this. Because, this is something for thousands and thousands of years. Humanity has been male or female. Every society, has been that role. Now, there's always been people who are transgender, gender fluid, non-binary, blah, 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 blah. There's always been that in every society out there. And they've always been persecuted. But all of a sudden, there's starting to become more and more acceptance of it. Acceptance doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't. It takes time. You have to be patient. Because if you push away people who would normally support you, who you're telling, you've got to automatically accept everything we tell you and adapt right then and there. You cannot make any mistakes with calling Demi Lovato by her preferred pronouns. I struggled in this podcast Because I'm used to thinking of Demi Lovato as a woman. Now I've got to think of Demi Lovato as non-binary. That is like completely changing everything, folks. It's going to take time. And that's all I'm asking. Allow those of us who are socially liberal, who don't buy into this, if you're gay, you're going to cause the downfall of America. It ain't going to happen because one thing, first of all, people are still going to have kids. People are still going to want to have kids. It just means that the way, gay people are going to be able to adopt children, lesbians are going to be able to get pregnant through a gay, not gay, but male, whether gay, straight, or whatever. This is a fundamental change in society. And fundamental changes in society do not happen overnight. Understand your history. For eons, there has been a rigidity to the human condition. Male, female has been the essential part of it. And now we've got a third gender role, or maybe more than three for all I know. Allow us time to accept it and adapt to it. We want to do that. We want to learn. We want to understand. But it does not happen overnight, folks. If more people were to be like myself and just say, look, I'm struggling with understanding this, we'd be in a much better world. Because we would be able to learn and understand. Instead, you got people who look at something they don't understand and go, why can't Demi Lovato stay being a woman? Why she got to change it into something that I don't understand? I can't stand her for being like that. You're dealing with society, folks, that for thousands of years, it's been male-female. For thousands of years, the acceptable sexual identity has been straight. And in the last 2 or 3, 4 decades, we finally started to come around and go, okay, gay people are okay. They're equal and all this. We finally come to that after all this time. And that's not all across the world, folks. That's just in parts of the Western world. And even then, you've got fierce opposition to that. In this country, much more or less. You've got people who would love nothing more than to completely outlaw it, to throw gay people in jail, or to kill them. Right now, in a seemingly socially moderate country, where it's not, there are people in this country who look at people like Demi Lovato and go, they don't want to live the way that God intended them. Put them up against the wall and shoot them. That's what they want to do. That's what you're facing against. It's the struggling to understand all of this. And people who will never understand it because they understand it, they just don't like it. But there are a lot of things I don't like. I don't like Manchester United. I don't want them wiped. I don't want all their fans killed and the club banned or anything like that. There are a lot of things I don't understand. There are a lot of things I don't like. I don't have the right to, have them obliterated. This is the thing with bigots. They've always been there. It's all about control for them. Please understand those of us who are not bigoted, who want to understand, who want you to have the same rights as straight, white, male people have. That's what we want. But it's going to take time to adapt and adjust and accept it completely and to get used to this. Please understand the massive social change you're asking for. is going to take time, that you're wanting to have happen. It's not going to happen overnight. Black people just want to be treated like white people in this country. Look how long that's taken. And we've still not gotten there yet. If we're honest with ourselves, women have fought for equality for decades. For centuries, actually, if you think about it. And we're still not there. And I could go off on on transgender athletes and all this and all that. I may do that another time, because that's a very complex issue that I'm just sort of going, I really struggle with that, you know. But I just want people to understand, look, we're struggling with it. We're trying to do the right thing. We're trying to be accepting and loving and all this, but be understanding that this is not easy to wrap our brains around it. All right, that's my little spiel about that. Thank you for listening. Hope you have a great day.